Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming out at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. We really appreciate it. One of my favorite parts about IBC is the fact that this conference does start at 10 rather than the 9 a.m. of NAB. So I'm really excited to be here. I have an exciting group of panelists with us together. I'm not going to go through and introduce everybody one by one. I'll have you guys jump in when you talk. But I do want to start with my friend Paul, who is, we were joking beforehand that you were the AI czar of ITV, but realistically, you're the poor man that's tasked with figuring out how AI will play out effectively on my childhood. So I'm a kid who grew up in America watching British TV. When you and I were talking for the panel, I realized that you effectively have my childhood on a shelf.
Is that suit and sweep?
It is, in fact. So look, Paul, how do you take some of the most important, interesting, exciting IP and make it relevant again?
I guess you don't know in large media companies, axing that media is really difficult. And I think you know from production, log sheets aren't great. So finding it's like almost impossible. So having tools like TwelveLabs is really helpful. And then what you can do is find these old radio shows that are from the 50s that no one's listened to. Because a lot of people say they watch these AI videos and they're like, oh, there's no storytelling in there. So how about find a radio show that's got a really good story and then help animate it, help get an older show that was maybe filmed in the 70s and then put some anime on it. And then you've got a new audience.
Because you remind me, you probably have things like Morecambe and Wise.
Sure.
That's the 1950s. My parents used to play it for me with a slightly inappropriate theme song. Regardless of that, to your exact point, you have this massive archive. And for the audience, there's a fun fact about what Paul's company does. Paul's company, ITV, there's a thing called the TV pickup. And what the TV pickup is it actually was started by ITV by a beautiful show called Coronation Street. And when a certain character died, or when a season finale occurred, the power grid in the UK would spike because everybody turned on their electric kettle, which is insane to think about. Now, the problem is today, the way we consume media is very different. It's very fragmented. And it doesn't mean we consume less media. It means we consume more media. But I hate to say it, I heard Paul say that he has no idea what's in his archive. How does a company like TwelveLabs do that or help with that, Danny?
Sure. So TwelveLabs builds multimodal foundation models focused on video understanding. So we take your existing content, index it, create things called embeddings, which are effectively a memory. So just like you would remember something you saw, that's what the embeddings do. They play back the thing that you want to retrieve. So with natural language, you can find anything in a vast archive or video corpus. We also have a model that extrapolates intelligence on it. So first you find the asset, then you actually can understand what's in it with video to text, summarizations, chapters, kind of any kind of metadata. So what we find is customers will come to TwelveLabs with this exact problem. I don't know what's in my archive. And sometimes that's important because they want to, have an AI initiative. Sometimes it's, I'm just curious. Sometimes it's actually driven by preservation, where this archive is actually deteriorating and we need to figure out something to do with it. What we're finding is actually, now we're in about our second year of commercialization, we're finding the more interesting discussions are really now on monetization and using that archive for something more than just storage, but actually leveraging it for, reusing the content in ways that were otherwise not even thought about when it was originally shot. So that's one way that we've been really, really excited about the discussions, at least at this year's IBC, is that transition away from just thinking about preservation and really about more of an enlightenment around what you can do with this content.
No, wait, you said two things there. One, you said video corpus. What's the video corpus? Should I know this?
Large amounts of video.
Copy that. Okay. Now, one of the things that one of your founders, So Young, says a lot, and this is stuck with me. She said this to me at HPA earlier this year. She said, Lewis, the thing you have to realize, if you're training a model, media entertainment is the world's largest repository of intentionally shot footage. So if you're attempting to train a model as to what a thing is, why not train it on footage that is intentionally representational of that? I thought that was really interesting because it gets into this idea of how we could make new things or unintentional devices from what we have. Now, in college, fun Lewis fact, in college, I actually worked at the Internet Archive. I worked for Rick Prillinger. If you've been to archive.org and you've seen, or if you've seen like a punk rock music video where there's like explosions or something that's black and white, it's the largest repository of public domain footage. And I spent a lot of college in a dark, dusty room scanning film and taking reels and reels and reels. And I don't think the process is exactly like that, but I imagine there's a building at ITV somewhere that has all these things that has to go somewhere. Now, I was looking over the IBC schedule, and very busy day today. We all have busy days. Thank you so much for being here. There's one talk I am going to today, though, because it's actually the talk you're moderating.
Right.
I think it's at, 3:45 today. You're doing a talk with Bass and Bonajay about an archive. Now, Bonajay is another massive production company who I can imagine have a massive production archive. Now, I've done some archive work with products like Snowball and Snowcone. Where does it go? Like, how does this work? Ian?
So I work at AWS, and I oversee our media supply chain and archive business. And so we have a lot of customers, like the example you're talking about, where they've got these vast archives. They're trying to figure out, what do I have, as we talked about, and how can I repurpose that to go to all the different platforms that it needs to go to. So getting the content into the cloud is the first element of that, the digitization, the extraction, the migration, and there's a number of different ways to do that. But really, that's where it starts, understanding what I have in that inventory more than just at a title level, but at a content level. And being able to look at that archive, search across it. Traditionally, with tags and labels, we get certain levels of understanding. But really, it's a revolution with what video understanding brings. And TwelveLabs is enabling us to have things like semantic search, to interact with this content in a natural language way. And so we see these workflows that are taking that content, and then traditionally we're talking about a 30-minute program with 2 commercial breaks that went on broadcast television. When you think about all the different platforms this has to go to, and all the different audiences it has to engage, that content needs to be purposed for that platform. That content needs to be promoted to the people who would come to that platform in a way that resonates with them. So these work streams need to consider not only what the content is, but who the likely audience is, where it's going to be shown, and how it should be monetized. And so that's a complex set of problems that AI is helping to accelerate. It doesn't fully automate. We still need people to review these things. But what was not possible 3 years ago because of the scale of the size of those archives and the amount of resources it would take for human beings to do that now is readily available. And so we can build workflows and patterns using these technologies that take the extraction process through to the preparation, packaging, and delivery process and automate majority of it.
So I'm trying to find a way to not say my next question in a weird way, but I think I'll land it. Paul, as a kid, I grew up in mostly in eastern San Diego, but I had what Americans would refer to as a weird accent. I had a Mancunian accent. And I grasped on to any piece of media where I could hear somebody with my voice or my accent in it. And one of my favorite shows was a show called Sooty and Sweep. I don't know if you can talk about this particular show, but I guess the point I'm making is when I think about a lot of these shows today playing into the landscape that we talked about, I try to think about this as this idea of micromedia. Back in the day, and when I was growing up, there was this idea of mass media. At 6 p.m., we all turn the same thing on. In New York, the water pressure gets lower at the same time because everybody's flushing the toilet or taking a shower. it's that same concept around the TV pickup. But today, people consume in a micromedia landscape. And part of this is, look, if you're a kid growing up today, you are seeing millions of images. Fortnite exists. And there's a lot of different stuff that a cute, kind of grubby sock puppet maybe doesn't appeal. And you hit to this briefly. How do we take genuine pedagogical gems like shows like Sooty and Sweep or many of the other shows? How do we bring that to a new audience in this new consumption landscape?
Well, I guess because now you can find the content quicker, you can give that content to your creative teams and allow them to kind of do whatever they want to do, allow their imaginations to flow, be like restyling, cutting up shorter. A lot of it will be filmed in 4:3, so you can use AI to switch it to 16:9. Yeah.
Or 9:16.
9:16.
You bring up something, though, that's interesting. And look, we're at a creative conference. We're all creatives. We all came up through those ranks. And AI often is talked about as this existential threat. I was actually told beforehand to not talk about the threat to creatives. But I actually want to talk about this right now because I think what we're talking about is actually not a threat. It's an opportunity to make mailbox money off of stuff that's not making money, but it's also an opportunity to repurpose things and to bring things into space. And that's what I'm excited about. Like every time I talk to 12Labs, you talk about human in the loop. You talk about how you engage with the artists. And I think that's exciting. Like, so Paul, and Danny, frankly, how would you collaborate to build that sort of storytelling?
I think it'd take it even a step further and give it to the consumer. Can you sort out your archive and allow it to be B2C so that the consumer can access your archive and create their own content and then bumper it up automatically and then send it to their friends? Can they get a TV show with, I don't know, Dad's Army or something like that? Change their faces to your friends, send it along. You're creating your GIFs, your memes. You're giving it to the...
Would you just say a B2C archive?
Yeah, just an idea.
Lewis, we've talked about this. Democratization of your archive is a real topic, right? And our goal is just to give you the tools to go do that. And when I say you, it's a video editor, it's a friend, it's whoever. It was originally, the way it was positioned to me is the 10 minutes that you could save an editor at 2 a.m. feels like 10 hours. And I think that's very true. How you even take that a level further and enable anybody to do that, I think is really, really exciting.
Yeah, it's also the thought that you have visibility and insights into how people are interacting with that content, and that can help drive and reinforce how that content gets purposed. Because I think for a lot of people, the archives are touched by an archivist somewhere down in some dark basement, traditionally, and there's very little understanding of how resonant a piece of content is. But when you propose the idea that I can just go in and access that visibility into my interactions and my interests, then allow you to tailor more offers directly to me.
Now, if this panel had a whiteboard, I'd start drawing this out. But you can see how you could take a TAMS framework, so that's time addressable media storage. If you haven't learned what that is yet, you really should. It's going to change the world. We have it in our booth over there. I think this is Hall 14, so C51, but it's also in the AWS booth, a couple other places as well over. Check out TAMS. It's interesting. Part of what gets interesting with this is the idea of a performance archive. Right now, the way we make archives, and there's a lovely Northern English term for this, we effectively just bung everything into the same place and we figure out what happens. But if you take a consumer approach and a performance approach, you have the opportunity, similar to like I talked about in college, I worked with the Internet Archive, and there was this slew of music videos. Like one of the clips I digitized is in a Devo video. And it's not in a Devo video because it's necessarily a good piece. It was because it's public domain and easy to search. We did a really good job of indexing. You could have all this new life into clips. Now, a friend of mine is a GIF millionaire. He's a man who, if there's a GIF of a dude leaning behind a tree going like this, and he's made millions of dollars off of that GIF. Is Paul saying, Danny, that that we could be making more clip millionaires through this sort of searching?
Not to speak for Paul, but I think he might be.
It's just a new opportunity. You change it. We're trying to make like dead wood that isn't being used into kind of a diamond, I guess. Are you hoping for that?
I think the point is that the building blocks are there for you to do that. And I think today it's at what we'd like to think about it is it's at the model layer of you're able to index the content and then use it. The next layer above that is reasoning. So you can actually understand across all of these videos kind of connected stories or pieces that you may want to tie together. Above that might be agents that we could open up to anybody, right? So doing a rough cut for you to say, is this the kind of content you're looking for based on what you were reasoning against? Those are all things that are actually happening. They're real. Again, today we're at that model layer. 12Labs models are available on Amazon Bedrock. Anybody can go into Amazon Bedrock, pick up and build, which is really, really exciting. But it's going to continue to evolve in the next 6, 9 months, 2 years. And I truly do think that the process will be fully democratized.
Not to belabor the session later, but the part of that is about rights. And when you think about what you're talking about, we're moving from a world where rights existed around a title to where rights exist around IP, right? And so your monetization, more than just a title, your opportunity to take and create those GIFs and build that GIF millionaire pipeline, it forces a change in thinking about companies and what they think about it, what is monetizable.
Sorry, it's really, really fascinating in thinking about this. And I'm going to put the team on the spot again for a second, because one of the things I think about as we start to build this is look, we know we can search for a clip. We can index it. Through TAMs, we can Command F and find things in our archive once they're analyzed. And this is maybe even drifting off topic, but I'm going to do it anyway. I think a lot about editing when I talk about panels, and I talk about archive. And if we know anything about the history of cinema, it really becomes cinema once editing happens. How do we start thinking about putting these clips together and what the collision, to quote Sergei Eisenstein, the collision of clips means? Danny, now I know that you have a tool called Marengo where you're looking at editing, but I'm curious if you're thinking about the meaning that's created when two clips are placed next to each other.
Yeah, I think there's new stories that are created. So we have a case study with Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. They're a great AWS customer. They actually use both of our models and a combination of other AI services in an agentic format to build content that goes out on their social channels to engage fans. And the most exciting part about it is it's not just a highlight generator. It takes footage from around the game, so fan interviews, press conferences, videos of the mascot, ties that to footage of actual highlights, so what happened in the game, and even uses generative models to kind of fill gaps and cracks. That's a story that was never being told before, was how the fans interacted to the play and then what the players said about it after the conference. So I think that is a very real thing that we are starting to see today. And I think you can obviously play that back and do it across not just sports, but do that very same thing with an archive of really, really amazing IP and content.
And the same information lets you understand what clip should go next. Can also tell you what advertisement to play in the middle of that clip. The contextual advertising and understanding of the scene and where the scene break is and what happened before allows for things like hyper-personalization of content and targeting of content, because you have the reference content context.
Yeah, and we know that advertising performs at about a 98% increase whenever things are personalized. You were about to say something and I cut you off. Sorry.
That's all right. I was going to say we're kind of doing that already with Planet X, and we've been doing with the editing. We've been using some boys over there, the QuickChat team. They've got an editing tool, and we've been practicing with that, and we've been like doubling our output on some of our productions. We've been able to find clips, put them together on a timeline, and allow our editors to work quicker and create more content.
That's fascinating. Now, I've been given the time signal, but I'm going to go over a tiny bit and say, I think that my big takeaway from this, and this has been really fun. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you so much, audience, as well. What I've been most excited about to learn is this idea, and I'm stealing this now, of the social archive. The idea of a B2C archive, because we think so much of this archive as I keep it, it's locked up in storage, I turn the crank, and because a lot of them are literally on cranks. You turn the crank and it's closed behind the thing, and there's some nice smoke effect that comes out with some light. Or I've been watching Alien Earth a bit too much, perhaps. Really good show, by the way. See, episode 3 not so much, but the rest of the series is really good. Regardless of Alien Earth and my feelings about it, and Alien Resurrection being the best Alien, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, what I'm really excited about is this concept of the performance archive and how we could take our archive and by opening it up to the fans, we could reshuffle our archive to find out which are the most important pieces and which are the pieces that are, while still important, perhaps don't need to be surfaced right at the front where there's easy access. So that's really exciting to me. I'm curious, and I'm just going to do the final panel thing where I go through and I say, hey, what's your big takeaway for today? Go ahead, Paul.
Anything's possible. Future's yours. Be curious, experiment. 12Labs is like a lot of media companies are sitting on an oil field, and I think 12Labs is like, the drills to export that.
I would say that technology has taken something that was dark and opaque and turned the lights on. And 12Lab is that light, right? All of a sudden, what I didn't understand, I couldn't know what I had and how I could use this. It's a fundamental transformation in what you can know and when you can know it.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry.
I would just say my kind of takeaway from this is that there's a real energy at this show this year, and it's different than in the past. I think we went from curiosity into actual tangible wants and needs that go beyond just thinking about how do I search, but actually what can I do with this asset? How can people create beyond what this content was originally designed for? So that's what I'm most excited about. And obviously, I think the outcome is going to be some form of monetization, but it's really about storytelling. And I think that's what we're seeing is happening now with AI, that I think is exactly what I think most of the folks in the room were hoping would happen. So
Thank you so much.
thank you.